Well, that's the ideal.
Okay.
What?
So it's done. That's it.
Well, that was the. I mean, the idea was either that, or more realistically, that potentially the interviews could be more interesting because a journalist could have this resource material as opposed to the internet, which seems to give up the same results again and again, and doesn't make for very interesting conversations when a journalist is preparing for an interview and all they come up with is what their hits.
Right.
So Faber said, we like this idea kind of, but we'd rather have it be a new interview rather than a compilation of older interviews. And they started suggesting British people. And I was like, I have an idea. And I suggested Ron, and they did. Because he's got some credibility over there as well.
But I mean, this is a substantial book. How many interviews did it take to create this?
It was a
One,
week.
two, three.
It was a week, kind of every day, going at it, and then maybe a year later, like follow-up interviews by phone, like just an hour a week. I think one you were driving somewhere, and the others maybe you were just at home. But we kind of limited it to these kind of hour-long follow-up interviews as opposed to the kind of full-on, a week-long drive.
So some of it probably was breaking a law somewhere. The phone.
It's funny because actually going down there, it was sort of like shooting a movie because I didn't have a script. I did have a list of like areas I knew we needed to cover just in terms of information and so forth. And I did work out a way in terms of like, okay, the first day I'm going to ask kind of more general things, and then days 2 and 3 are going to be like hardcore chronology, and then day 4 is kind of a break where we'll just kind of look at photos or just whatever, just to see if something triggers some other memory or factoid or whatever. And then the last day would just be like a wrap up, and just tying up loose ends, whatever else it was. And then I had all this I had 30 hours of interview, and then like having 30 hours of raw footage, and then you take it back and you start editing and sorting through, and some stuff, on the cutting room floor, and some stuff got in there, and then you also had to kind of move it around and get it into something.
So did you just come up with a finished thing and present it to Will? Did you guys go back and forth?
Yeah, I showed it to Will, and he didn't like it, so then...
Rather than the individuals on the record to have the identity, have it be some sort of collective thing. And people will hear a voice, and they will associate the voice with the singer and create a narrative based on what they're hearing that voice say, as long as the lyrics are somewhat coherent and in a language the audience can understand. And at a certain point, that wasn't a value that I had, and I felt like I was fighting it, and I thought, then at a certain point, it's a pain in the ass to be fighting every day. So thought, oh, well, let's make a being that is the voice of all these songs. And so, then it was being that I could recognize a real and mythological creature of song and story and history, and the prince being like Nat King Cole, and and then later, and I'm sure I must have known it, that if you flip it around, and Billy Bonnie is Billy the Kid name. So, yeah, does that answer the question?
Sure,
okay.
Yeah.
Set for the idea of what the American Songbook is?
I do. I was there, and there's a new there's a new record that's about to kind of come out with a beer made by the Dogfish Head brewery, and one of the songs has a little introduction in the way that Ella Fitzgerald's Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered might have a little introduction tacked on to the song a decade or 5 years or 1 year or 6 months or 2 decades after the song was written, and it's, those are, and again we're talking about Sinatra or Nat King Cole and these songs that, and I grew up liking musicals, liking MGM musicals, and so I don't necessarily think there is a relationship, but I do value what those songwriters that you mentioned, you know, or specifically the Gershwins, like, those are fun. They're like Sherlock Holmes cases. They are problems presented and problems solved, you know, by the end of the 3 minutes. And you can listen to it again and again and again, and you'll never know exactly how or why the mystery arose or exactly how or why it was solved, but you know that it's all contained in there, so it's worth every listen because you're going to come closer to being a better detective each time you listen to the song.